Genesis chapter 22. Sometime later, God tested Abraham's faith. Abraham, God called. Yes, he replied, here I am. Take your son, your only son, yes, Isaac, whom you love so much, and go to the land of Moriah. Go and sacrifice him as a burnt offering on one of the mountains which I will show you. The next morning, Abraham got up early. He saddled his donkey and took 2 of his servants with him, along with his son Isaac. Then he chopped wood for a fire for a burnt offering and set out for the place God had told him about. On the 3rd day of their journey, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. Stay here with the donkey, Abraham told the servants. The boy and I will travel a little further. We will worship there, and then we will come right back. So Abraham placed the wood for the burnt offering on Isaac's shoulders, while he himself carried the fire and the knife. As the 2 of them walked on together, Isaac turned to Abraham and said, Father? Yes, my son, Abraham replied. We have the fire and the wood, the boy said, but where is the sheep for the burnt offering? God will provide a sheep for the burnt offering, my son, Abraham answered, and they both walked on together. When they arrived at the place where God had told him to go, Abraham built an altar and arranged the wood on it. Then he tied his son Isaac and laid him on the altar on top of the wood. And Abraham picked up the knife to kill his son as a sacrifice. At that moment, the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven, Abraham, Abraham! Yes, Abraham replied, here I am. Don't lay a hand on the boy, the angel said. Do not hurt him in any way, for now I know that you truly fear God. You have not withheld from me even your son, your only son. Then Abraham looked up and saw a ram caught by its horns in a thicket. So he took the ram and sacrificed it as a burnt offering in the place of his son.
When I was a maths teacher, head of maths at Sandown, I was also in charge of something called learning skills. The purpose of this was to help the students develop their thinking skills, their independence, their problem solving. I wrote all the lesson plans, and everyone across the school was supposed to teach from these lesson plans. That's in the good old days of a beginning, a middle and end, a starter, a main task and a plenary. Sometimes, just to amuse myself, I'd put things in at the starters, and I'd write things like, a cat is stuck in a tree. You have 1 Wellington boot and 1 umbrella. How can you get the cat out of the tree? Discuss. Or things like, giraffe or gerbil. Turn to the person next to you and say which one. It's giraffe, isn't it really? So, there was a purpose, possibly. Sometimes though, as a teacher, all you really want is a handout. Now, Hannah is training to be a teacher, as she demonstrated this morning, an English teacher. Better than that, as it happens, on Friday she happened to get a job as an English teacher, so she's now got money coming in. So in preparation for that, I'm going to ask Hannah to hand in this worksheet.
Oh, okay.
Do you allow children to eat sweets in your class?
One each?
Yes, 1 each, please. It's in colour, so it's expensive, so don't lose it. The sheet basically shows that a lot happened in the story of Abraham. That was a joke. That's joke number 1. A lot. Oh. Thank you very much. A lot happened in the story of Abraham. A man called Abraham with no children and a wife called Sarah is told that he will be the father of many, changing his name from Abram to Abraham. He spends time in Egypt and escapes the famine. Abraham helps his nephew Lot to escape Sodom and Gomorrah. Abraham negotiates with God about finding a good person there. This does not end well for Sodom and Gomorrah. He has a child with his servant because he doubts God's promise that his wife, now called Sarah, will give birth. She is, after all, 99. Sarah not only doubts that she will have a child, but also thinks that this suggestion is ridiculous and ludicrous and laughs. However, they have a child. They call him Isaac. God tells Abraham to sacrifice Isaac. Abraham plans to do so. Isaac, incidentally, allows him to do this. Abraham dies at the grand old age of 175. This takes place from Genesis chapter 11 to Genesis chapter 25. A lot happens in the life of Abraham. And you've just done exactly what happens in every class I've ever been to. No one's paying the blindest bit of attention to me, and you're all looking at the sheet. That's the challenges of being a teacher. Some of you I might be sending out in a moment. There's the one. So, I thought, as you will see from the Bible study notes, that I'd be talking about Abraham's calling. I could. Those are jolly good Bible study notes. I thought I'd be saying to you that Abraham is a nobody, nothing special, and God calls him and blesses him and says, trust in me and everything will be okay. God comes along and gives hope to the hopeless. You will have a child. Even though Abraham mucks things up, as we all do, and as do all the heroes of the Bible, he lies to the Egyptians about Sarah rather than trusting in God to keep him safe, doubting the promise of a child with Sarah, and so has a child with his servant, rather than trusting that God is capable of anything he wishes, making Abraham a father at the age of 100. Even though he mucks things up, God still blesses him. I thought I would be talking about that. However, Annette and I then had the conversation, and things changed. Because Annette is cleverer than me. Annette has made mistakes in the past, and I take these opportunities, when I've got a microphone, to point them out. However, the majority of them are linked to her not particularly intelligent husband. One of Annette's biggest mistakes was asking me what colour we should paint the hallway. Annette suggested a pastel pink hue type colour, warm, inviting, spring-like, much like this shirt, sets the colours of my eyes off. I said, if we're going to go with pink, why don't we go with bright pink? And so Annette let me go to B&Q on my own and pick it. For 2, 3, 4 years, our hallway looked like an explosion in a Barbie factory. It was the brightest, pinkest, most ridiculous colour in the world. The only place it would fit would be in a magical unicorn's dream. I've never been asked, or indeed trusted, to pick a colour again. Or trusted on anything, to be honest, actually, I come to think of it. So, Annette said to me that Abraham's story was about sacrifice. And so, taking Annette's idea, I would like to talk for a moment about Kim Kardashian. I don't know who Kim Kardashian is. Or at least on Wednesday night, when I first started writing this, I didn't know. Now, however, I don't think I'm any the wiser. I'm still not certain who she is or why she's famous. However, I'm going to talk and use Kim as an example. How do we, in Western culture, usually, stereotypically, mostly judge success? This isn't everyone by a long stretch, but generally. Success equates to fame. Success is how many people are following you on Facebook or Twitter. Success is how much money you have in the bank account, the size of your house, the clothes you wear, how new your mobile phone is. Success, when you look at it like that, is very, very shallow. The most famous people became famous through, and then I've actually got ... because I don't know. I don't know how some of the most famous people are now famous. But that is what people want. Instant success, instant fame, instant stardom. This is the winner of Celebrity Jungle Get Me Out of Here, Scarlett Moffat. We, Annette and I, have watched 10 minutes of this show once, when Scarlett and Carol Vorderman, but I do know, mathematician, though she's actually got an engineering degree, but that's a whole different story. Don't get Annette started on that one. Were eating some nasty food, and they were fabulous together. But I didn't know who Scarlett was. It turns out she's famous for Gogglebox. Gogglebox blows my mind. Quite right, Tony. I have no idea either. Thank you for shaking your head as well. This is a show about people watching the television. And I'm sat watching them. So basically, I'm watching people watch the telly that wasn't good enough in the first place for me to watch. It doesn't make sense. However, there's instant celebrity. Kim Kardashian is a pinnacle of success from that point of view. She has got 49,791,773 followers on Twitter. So here is the question. What are you willing to sacrifice to get this instant fame and this instant success? What happens to your character, your integrity, your family? What are you willing to compromise when you're chasing this unobtainable goal? Because there's always a bigger fish. Katy Perry has 95,517,212 followers. That's almost twice as many. Abraham takes his son, the thing he's longed for the most, the great promise, the great hope, the son that will make him a father of many, father of all nations, with offspring too numerous to count, to a mountain to sacrifice him, because God has told him to do this. This is the ultimate sacrifice. Abraham lived at a time and place when child sacrifice was common. People would be sacrificed in order to appease the gods, so that the sacrificer would prosper and be successful. But this is a loving God. Is he doing this because he thinks he will prosper? Is it because he is scared to disobey God? We do not know. We only know that he obeys. You're supposed to do what God tells you, no matter what, no matter how strange. That's the pinnacle of success. There are certain stories in the Bible that people know. Even if they don't come to church, even if they don't read their Bible. People know about Adam and Eve. They know about Noah and the ark, Moses and the Red Sea, David and Goliath, Daniel and the lion's den. People know about the story of Abraham and Isaac and the sacrifice. People know about this father and this son. They know that Abraham was ready to do what God had commanded. Carrying Isaac carrying the wood. Abraham building an altar. Isaac willing to climb on the altar. Abraham tying his son with ropes. Isaac waiting for the knife to fall. Abraham raising the knife, and then at the last minute, God stops him. Can you imagine the conversation home? So, son, Isaac. Awkward. There's silence from Isaac. How does Isaac respond in any way, shape or form? But Isaac was willing to. The problem with the story, when looked at this way, is that it presents God, who is asking for this sacrifice, as a grotesquely cruel character, especially those unfamiliar with the Bible. I've probably mentioned before the little girl who says she doesn't like God in the Old Testament because he's mean and angry all the time. She much prefers him in the New Testament after he becomes a Christian. This God of the Old Testament seems mean. He is commanding Abraham to kill his son. The second problem is a problem for us who are actually familiar with the story, because we read the story backwards. We know that Abraham doesn't sacrifice Isaac, that God does provide the sacrifice. We read it backwards, which means we miss something. We miss the obedience of Abraham. It is unquestionably true that God asks Abraham to sacrifice his son. Whether we think that is mean or not, that is the truth. It's mean. It would have been enough for God to say, take your son. But God focuses on the use of the word only. And the next one, please. Take your only son. He emphasises the word only. This is a bit mean for Ishmael, who is also Abraham's son. But the word only emphasises that Isaac is this son of the promise. God then asks, whom you love. This seems grotesquely cruel. Rubbing salt in the wound. Sacrifice your only son, whom you love. Keith Green was a Christian musician, singer, songwriter from the 1970s. He wrote a song called Pledge My Head to Heaven. Here is the third verse. Well, I pledge my son to heaven for the gospel. Though he's kicked and beaten, ridiculed and scorned, I will teach him to rejoice and lift a thankful, praising voice, and to be like him who bore the nails and crown of thorns. I'm your child, and I want to be in your family forever. I'm your child, and I'm going to follow you. No matter whatever the cost, I'm going to count all things lost. He said that when he's writing these lyrics, he cried. He cried not because God had spoken to him and said, "Take your son to a mountaintop and sacrifice him," but because he knew that actually by following God, he is sacrificing everything for him. Abraham has a choice. This man of faith has two options: either obey or don't. If you stop and argue, that is a form of disobedience. If you try to negotiate your way out of it with God, you're also disobeying. If you offer an alternative plan, this is also a form of disobedience. Abraham is a man of faith and is held up in the Bible as a man of faith. So he does as he is commanded. However, we're left with some contradictions. God has promised Abraham to make him the head of a great nation, and through that nation he would bring blessing to the world. God promised he would bring forth this nation from Isaac's descendants, which we all now know how to spell. But that can't happen if Isaac, who was a teenager at the time, was dead. So we have this contradiction. God commands Abraham to sacrifice Isaac. God promised to bless the world through Isaac. The command and the promise seem to contradict one another. If Abraham obeys the command, does that cancel out the promise, since Isaac will be dead? If Abraham disobeys the command, what happens to the promise? And so we're left with this remarkable leap of faith. Abraham didn't know how God would do it. He just knew that God would do it somehow. There's the most crucial lesson of all. When God makes us a promise, it is foolish, it is daft or daft, however you want to say it. It is silly to wonder how he will keep his word, because we know that God will keep his word. Faith does not worry about how. Faith leaves the how to God. Abraham had no idea, none whatsoever, what would happen. We know because we know the end of the story. Abraham doesn't kill Isaac. But sometimes we forget, because we read the story backwards, this giant leap of faith from this man of faith. God says go, and we should go. God says stop, and we should stop. God says, give me your dearest possession, and we offer it to him. That is what faith is. There is a hint though, in Genesis chapter 22 verse 5. Abraham is talking to the servants before he walks up the mountain, and he gives the following instruction: stay here with the donkey while I and the boy go over there. We will worship, and then we will come back to you. Did you see it? We will come back to you. Not I will come back to you. We will come back to you. Abraham believed. As they're walking together, Isaac, who he says is a teenager, so he's also paying attention, he's not a baby at this point, turns to his father and says, "Where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" Abraham's reply, his total faith in what looks like a hopeless situation, and he's been in hopeless situations before, is in verse 8. God himself will provide the lamb. There is faith. Whether that was faith that God would literally raise Isaac from the dead, or simply figuratively. Abraham raised the knife, and God said stop. Isaac at that point was figuratively dead, before God provided the ram caught in the bush that is offered in Isaac's place. We now know the full extent of the story, because we've read the Bible from the start to the end. We know that God can raise people from the dead. Abraham offered his son. Father God offered his son. Isaac carried the wood. Jesus carried the cross. Isaac was laid on the altar. Jesus was nailed to a cross. Abraham was willing to put his son to death. The Father God, willed his son should die. The ram was offered in the place of Isaac. Jesus Christ was offered in the place of all sinners. Abraham received his son back figuratively. Jesus literally rose from the dead. God commands Abraham, God commends Abraham, you have not withheld from me your son, your only son. God is at saying, I asked for your most precious possession, and you gave it to me. But God is also saying, you needed my most precious possession, and I gave it to you. There's a story by Mark Still in one of his books, and it says, A lady called Jill Briscoe once had to speak at a church in Croatia where 200 newly arrived refugees were gathered. Her audience were mostly women because the men were either dead, imprisoned or at war. After seeing the women's faces, she felt that her message was totally inappropriate for her, so she prayed for God to give her words to say. Putting aside her notes, she started to tell the women about Jesus, and how as a child he had become a refugee himself. She told them how his parents had to flee to Egypt, pursued by Herod's soldiers, and how they left everything behind. She told her the rest of Jesus' life too, and finished by describing what Jesus had suffered on the cross. She finished by saying, all these things happened to you. You are homeless. You have had to flee. You have suffered unjustly. But you didn't have a choice. He had a choice. He knew all this would happen to him, but still Jesus came. Many of the refugees knelt down, put their hands in their hair and wept. He's the only one who really understands. Then they cried. God understands what we're going through. He became human and felt our emotions. God is out of time. When he asked Isaac to sacrifice his son, he knew what he was feeling because he sacrificed his own son. However, God stayed Abraham's hand, but not his own hand. He allowed his son to be sacrificed. So that question, what are you willing to sacrifice? There's nothing wrong with having a family, raising your children, making money, having a career, having an education, making your way in the world, having lots and lots of followers on Twitter or Facebook or whatever Snapchat is. It doesn't really matter in the end though, because what God wants is for us to fully follow him. There's more important things to God. At the risk of bursting into flames, think about the lyrics of Always Look on the Bright Side of Life from the film Monty Python's Life of Brian. I mean, what have you got to lose? You know you come from nothing, you're going back to nothing. What have you lost? Nothing. We come into this life with nothing. We leave with nothing. In between, God fills our hands with good things, but sometimes he asks us to hand them back to him and for him. Hold lightly what you have in this world. It's God's anyway, and he can do far greater things than we can ever imagine. Do we hold on to things that we shouldn't? Or are we willing to say, Lord, it belongs to you anyway? One of the things I did learn about Kim Kardashian. Kim Kardashian said, let go and let God. Mark 8 verse 36 says, Jesus says, what do you benefit if you gain the whole world and lose your own soul? So there is the deal. You can keep the world for a moment, the things that seem important to the world, but you'll have to give them up in the end anyway. Or you can keep your soul by letting go of the things that were never yours in the first place. What is your Isaac? What are you willing to lay down and sacrifice for Jesus' sake? The sacrifice of God puts everything into perspective. There's a song, Stephen's going to come and sing us a song in a moment, but there's a song which we have sang before. When I survey the wondrous cross. The words say, when I survey the wondrous cross on which the Prince of Glory died, my richest gain I count but loss, and pour contempt on all your pride. And then the last verse says, were the whole realm of nature mine, that were an offering far too small, love so amazing, so divine, demands my soul, my life, my all. That's what God asks from us. Shall we pray?